Carol Keaton's analysis, when she specifically compared what undocumented people in Texas pull out in state tax-supported services and compared that to what undocumented people put in the taxes, the state taxes that they pay into Texas, Carol Keaton said every year Texas is a net gainer of $400 million over and above by the undocumented community in the taxes that they pay in. All of us work, we all get Social Security and Medicare deducted from our paychecks. That's the result of working what is called on the books. You use your Social Security number, and that's what we use to tie us into the IRS and Social Security Administration. There are many bogus Social Security numbers. These are numbers that people invent out of thin air. These are numbers that people get because they take somebody's wallet. These are numbers that people borrow. If you happen to have a small child who's 6 months old and someone asks you, can I use your child's Social Security number to work with? It could be that an elderly relative of you died and someone asks you for the Social Security number. And so you start working. You know, you can imagine the look of people at the Social Security Administration, then all of a sudden they begin to receive the taxes, Social Security taxes, from someone who died 10 years ago and says, you know, Jesus isn't the only one that resurrected. There's quite a few people, you know, in different parts of the country that have resurrected as well, okay? All of those stream of taxes that enter the Social Security Administration are tracked in what is known an earnings suspension file. Social Security doesn't keep the money. It gets the money, it documents it, it turns it around and sends it right back in the form of Social Security checks, okay? Up to now, the Social Security Administration has tracked $1.5 trillion in its earnings suspension file. The undocumented population of the United States has thus far contributed $0.5 trillion to the Social Security Trust Fund. If there are some of you that are retired here that are receiving a Social Security check, when you go home today, you get on your knees and you say, thank you, God, for all those undocumented people that are helping my check come every month to me. Okay? In Texas, as is true in many states, we finance our public, elementary, junior, and high schools through property taxes. What is one of the mantras that you hear over and over and over? Why do we have to educate the children of the undocumented? Why do we have to accept that burden? Let's look at that burden, okay? How do we pay for George Smith Elementary School or George Smith High School? How do we finance it? How do we build the school and pay the teachers? We do it through property taxes. We do it through the sale of lottery tickets. We do it through subsidies from our state government to try and equalize funding levels to keep school districts more or less equal in our states. Oftentimes, those taxes come to the states through things like sales tax. Take El Paso, Texas. Try and imagine this. I am Ruben, and I marry Maria, and Maria and I cross the river, and we cross over with our 3 children. We cross over, I get a job working on a construction crew. I have somebody's Social Security number. I'm working on a construction crew. My wife and I, we rent this apartment. My wife sells burritos. She cleans homes to add to the income. And so we're living in this apartment complex. Over there is Ruben and Mary, who are U.S. citizens. Ruben and Mary have college degrees. They also have 3 kids, and they have their 3 kids in school. Ruben and Mary are teachers. Ruben and Mary work for a computer company. Ruben and Mary work for a bank. Ruben and Mary have a job. They're buying a home, and they're paying a mortgage. In the state of Texas, there is something that is called a homestead exemption. It allows you to exempt a certain level of the value of your home, and so you pay homestead property taxes on your home. Ruben and Maria live in an apartment complex. That is considered a commercial piece of property, and they pay commercial property taxes on that apartment complex. The owner takes his taxes, divides it by the number of units that he has, and each unit pays that part of the property tax spread out in the monthly rent that is charged in a 12-month period. Ruben and Maria buy lottery tickets. We buy lottery tickets because economically we're on the margin, and we buy lottery tickets hoping that someday we might win the lottery. Ruben and Mary, they have college degrees. They took a class called statistics. They know that the odds of winning the lottery are so small that it makes more sense to simply take that money, put it in a mutual fund, and just keep feeding it, and 30 years, 40 years later, it's going to be a couple $1,000s. Ruben and Maria can't even pronounce the word statistic. When Mary and Ruben go to Kmart or Target or Macy's, when they go to Sam's, Costco, and they buy something, they pay sales tax. When Ruben and Mary go to a gas station and they fill up their car with gasoline, they pay both the federal gasoline tax and the state gasoline tax. When Ruben and Maria go to Target and buy something, when they get to the cashier, they say to the cashier, "Oh, you know what? We're undocumented. We're here illegally, so please deduct the sales tax." You know, you see it all the time. The one that I really like is when Ruben and Maria go fill up their car with gasoline. You might, next time you fill up your car with gasoline, hang around the gas station. Just stand by one side and just observe. Eventually, you're going to see an undocumented person come fill up their car, and watch what happens. They get out of the car, they open up their gas tank, and then they look around to see if anybody's watching. And when they think nobody's watching, they go up to the gasoline pump and they whisper in the side, "I'm undocumented, deduct the taxes." And then the gas pump recalculates, and so they pay 40, 50 cents less per gallon of gasoline than you do. If you really watch closely, you'll hear and see how they do it, so that then you too, next time you fill up, you go up to the pump and say, "You know what? I'm an undocumented person," you know, which would be a real change. I'm trying to pass off as an undocumented person. That's a switch, isn't it? Okay? All I'm saying to you, that it is almost impossible to live in the United States and not pay the majority of the same taxes that all of us pay. The last time Congress attempted immigration reform, and a version of immigration reform actually passed the House of Representatives known as the Strive Act, one of the provisions that was included in allowing the undocumented population to legalize was a requirement that everyone who applied for legalization would be obligated to sign a renunciation of ever making a claim on any of the Social Security taxes they had paid during the entire time that they had been working here as undocumented people. Isn't that an interesting provision to put into an immigration bill when we keep insisting they don't pay taxes? The National Research Council tells us that the average immigrant in the United States pays $1,800 a year over and above what they take out in tax-supported services. They say that when you add the tax pay of the children of immigrants throughout a lifetime, it actually becomes an $80,000 contribution over and above what is pulled out in tax-supported services. During President Bush's term, every year, President provides Congress with a report on the state of the country. It includes an analysis of demographic. President Bush's analysis to Congress said that between 2015 and 2020, when you look at the worker population growth in the United States during that period of time, workers that are 55 years of age and older, that part of the workforce is going to increase by 50%. The workforce between the ages of 25 and 54 is going to increase by 5.1%. Workers between the ages of 16 and 24 is going to increase by 9%. What we're learning is we're getting older, and the number of younger people coming through the pipeline ain't very big. Social Security Administration tells us that in 1950, for every person that was retired, if I was retired in 1950, there were 18 workers paying into the Social Security system so that I could get my retirement check. Okay? In other words, 18 people were holding me up in retirement. By 1960, that dropped to 9. There were now 9 workers holding up every retiree. By 2010, last year, that had dropped to 3.5 workers for every retiree. By 2020, it is going to be 2.2 workers. Okay? I'd be concerned for those of you here at Creighton University what that's going to look like when it comes time for you to retire. Okay? Perhaps more significant, in 1960, the birth rate in Mexico was 6.2 babies for every woman. Last year, 2010, the birth rate in Mexico was down to 2.2 per woman. Mexico will very shortly have a birth rate comparable to that of the United States. We are yelling, let's get rid of all of these undocumented people, without stopping to realize the day's going to come, there ain't going to be any undocumented people to come into our country. They're simply not having the births. People having fewer births is an issue in Japan. It is an issue in Russia. It is an issue in European countries, to the point that governments are now giving couples bonuses to have babies. The economic viability of countries, as they know themselves to be, are now an issue.